Let's get started with this quick tutorial. I'm using watercolor paper by Canson. It is listed in the description for you to look at. I've cut down my sheets into fours, so I'm using a quarter sheet. What I love about that is that I can work small and have lots of little test pieces that I can reference. So what I want you to do is grab a pencil. This is a 4H, very lightly. I'm going to go a little bit darker so that you can see. We'll start with the top here. Very lightly, we're just going to draw some abstract, really flowy sort of leaf shapes. I want them to resemble a stem. Don't love the tip of that one, but we're just going to do some really fun watercolor practice that you can use when you are looking to improve your brush strokes, your watercolor flow, and practice some techniques. I'm using two different style round brushes, an 8 and a 4, and I have my water beside me here. I think I will start with the smaller of the two, and just going into that first leaf, I'm putting down a coat of water, making sure that I don't have too much water on my paper, but what I'm doing is just prepping. So we'll do wet on wet technique for this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and just pick up a bit of your watercolor pigment, brush it on using the tip of your brush to guide it, and letting those beautiful bursts just flow and puddle. I like to encourage the watercolor pigment to pool into the corners and edges so that it starts to develop really nice texture. You can even bring in a different color. So maybe on the outer edge we can deepen it. And as you're working, if you don't like how the color's sitting, just dry off your brush and pull that pigment, sweeping your brush across. And then you can always go back in with a different color. I decided I want this to be more of a highlight. There we go. Maybe I'll even pick up a bit of this tan color. So what I'm doing is I'm just mixing different tones. I want this leaf to have some really nice interest naturally, and I'm just using the side of my brush and brushing in that pigment. Again, I'll use a deeper color. This is more of a Payne's gray that I'm mixing to create some depth. You can even bring in some lines as it's still wet. Okay, at this point, I may even draw in my stem, pick a bit of a deeper color, and I don't want it to be straight. It's going to be curvy and off the side. So this type of practice is really great, again, if you are looking to learn how to create wet and wet techniques, of course, but just how to build depth within your piece. What you can do is start playing around with colors. So I'm using a leaf theme here because leaves are my jam. I can paint leaves all day long. I feel like they're meditative. I can get abstract with them. I don't need to look at a photo for reference. I'm just gonna go ahead and bring more water. Just make sure you don't have too much water as your base. If you do, no worries. Just use your paper towel to remove some of the water. And then remember to go in and create some depth. So this one, I think I'll create a deeper shade here, the edge of the brush, or sorry, the leaf, and then I'm going to leave the rest. I'm gonna see how that starts to dry. Might even pick up a bit of this yellow ochre because I want to see a little bit of variation in the leaf naturally, and just let the watercolor do its thing. Okay, so these are really great practices that you can work on to learn how to use your brush. Okay, so I'll let that dry a little bit, but that's a really great way to create some nice depth and an interesting leaf to practice as you're practicing different techniques. Right now I'm just using a clean brush that it's damp to remove a bit of the color. I really like doing this because I feel like it creates beautiful highlight naturally. Go ahead and erase some of that water, but bring in a bit more of that pigment. And just really nicely cleaning up this line here. As it starts to dry, you can still add in fresh water, move your paint around, create some interesting puddles and texture, and then just observe how it dries. Okay, so this is a really great warm-up technique that you can use when you're starting to learn watercolor and wanting to add a fun practice that allows you to finish with a really sweet painted piece. Okay, hope you enjoyed that.